Hey guys, it's your boy Vladis, and today I'm going to be a little bit more quiet in this video because my baby is sleeping right across that room. So I wanted to make a video on kind of like the top 10 grievances or problems or issues that I have with the profession system in Ashes of Creation. So I made a little bit of slides, a little bit of a PowerPoint deck to kind of show, I'm hoping, fingers crossed, that the devs are going to watch this video and kind of just see my little anecdotal experience. But I've also gone into several guild discords. I've talked to a lot of different people that have been doing a lot of gathering, processing, and crafting. And from all the data that I've gathered, I've kind of compiled it into this little short list. I'm sure there's way more. This is kind of like my list. So let's just get started here with number one, my first thing, and this isn't really in any kind of order. From number one's like my most biggest problem. These are all equally, in my opinion, as big of a problem. So first, number one, the leveling experience. And I'm specifically talking as a gatherer. In most MMOs, you don't really feel, if you're a herbalist, going from level 11 to level 12 does anything. Or, in Ashes, it kind of feels just a very lackluster leveling experience. The leveling is just to get to your next breakpoint, which is your certificate, right? To be an apprentice and then to be a journeyman. But outside of that, you're leveling 10 levels, what it feels like to be nothing, and you don't even feel like you're getting more powerful, or it just, because of the RNG chance of rarities and stuff like that, like I don't feel like I'm doing anything, which kind of feels bad. And I was thinking to myself, this is of course without currently the profession talent tree, right? So the talent tree could fix this entire issue and it could be moot. The way I kind of thought about it is you can even do something super simple. What I was thinking is sort of like the weapon talent tree, and not the talent tree as a whole, but on the right hand side you have levels, right? And each level grants you like a passive. And I was thinking to myself, like, that would be really nice at least. And you can do it like every 2 levels, you can do it every level, like but the example I'm giving here is every 2 levels. So when you hit level 2, and this could be any profession, I would definitely want them to do this, but I'm kind of thinking more so, this is an example with gathering. So at level 2, you increase the harvesting speed by 2%. At 4%, or at level 4, you increase the uncommon rarity by 3%. Level 6 have a 10% chance to give you an extra resource. At level 8, increases the rare rarity by 0.5%. And at level 10, it increases overall rarity by 5%. So at each time you're leveling, you have something you're looking forward to. I kind of like that idea. I like the idea of when I'm leveling my gathering, or whether it's a processing, whether it's crafting, that I feel like I'm getting better. I'm getting better at my craft. I'm getting better at what I'm doing. And you can do that by these very simple passives. And again, the talent tree could completely make this entire thing moot, but I'm just giving my experience as of right now, doing it in phase 1, still doing gathering and processing in phase 2. It just feels extremely lackluster. Let's go into another big issue, and it's how legendaries don't really feel legendary. There's a huge rarity problem, and because this is a numbers game at the end of the day, because we are in guilds, and some people might be small guilds and other people might be big guilds, but with a guild, you're funneling, right? That's the entire point. You're funneling your materials to, certain people so they can process, and those processors can go into the crafters, because it's going to be insanely hard for any one person to do all 3 things, right? To be your own gatherer, your own processor, and your own crafter. That's going to be extremely rare in this game. So right now, and how rarity works is it's just RNG. You have to pray to RNG Jesus to hopefully get a legendary or a heroic or an epic. And I just don't understand that. I don't. I mean, imagine if you were a level 3 fighter and you just have a 1% chance to hit a mob for 10,000 damage. Would that feel weird? I mean, I think people would love that, right? But I mean, it just, the way I would want rarity, so I made this little slide, and a lot of people might completely disagree with me about this. I would rather have, again, a progression. The thing is how rarity is in my own head is, I don't know what I'm doing. If I'm a gatherer, I go and gather materials, and they're going to be very common materials because I'm learning, right? So the majority of the stuff that I'm going to be gathering is going to be common. And I think as a novice from levels 1 through 10, of course, this is without accepting the apprenticeship certificate. I put some numbers here on the screen. And again, these are all Fugazi numbers. I'm just giving a representation, right? This is just an example of what I would do in this particular rarity scenario. Every breakpoint would then introduce the next level of rarity. Because right now I go to the marketplace and I can just see a bunch of things like epic, legendary copper, for sale, legendary Western Larch. And again, if you have a guild, which again, it's a numbers game, you can go and just buy all this legendary stuff and it just doesn't feel legendary. And I think people were saying months and even years that have been in the Ashes community that they do want epic to feel epic. They want legendary to feel legendary. And with this whole profession system with 5 breakpoints, which is novice, apprentice, journeyman, master, and grandmaster, it makes sense that certain rarities should be completely off limits until you hit the next breakpoint. So when you go from novice to apprentice, now an apprentice can actually hit a 2% rarity for heroic. And then a journeyman can hit like a 1% chance now for epic when it was 0%. And then with master, now you don't get legendary yet, but you do get a 2% chance to go to epic, right? And then grandmasters have the ability to actually harvest legendary components and materials for their gathering. And to me, this just makes more sense because not everybody is going to want to grandmaster a gathering profession, which means that those particular materials are going to be extraordinarily rare out in the wild, as they should be, and all of the more plentiful materials, the commons, the uncommons, and rares are probably going to be the most, those are going to feel like the way they should be. And rare, I think, will be pretty rare, but with the apprenticeship and even with novice being able to get rare, it's going to feel a little bit more common, but at least you'll have a degree of what we have now when you go into a dungeon and you have uncommon gear or even that rare chance of gear, that feels good. But I think rarity right now, just being completely RNG, I can be a level 2 miner and get 5 legendary copper. I know that is exciting, but it just doesn't make sense. And I really personally don't like it. My next issue is crafters need to make the best shit. I have seen so many times people not really going to weaponsmiths or armor smiths because the stuff that drops is just better. And I find that to be very weird. I don't know if there needs to be different just stat allocations for dropped gear compared to the recipe gear. The recipe gear needs to have a higher minimal threshold than the maximum threshold, because again, every gear has RNG numbers, right? Sometimes you'll get a flare sword and it might have 41 physical power, and you get another flare sword that has like 52 magical or physical power. So it's all RNG, but the drop stuff should have a lower threshold than the crafted stuff. The crafted stuff should be better. Like, you should want to go to a crafter to make it, because you know that doesn't matter what flare sword you get out in the wild, the crafted one will always be better. And right now, I just don't think we have that. But there's also other issues with crafting, weapons and armor and stuff like that because of the rarity of resources. And honestly, I didn't put that on this list because Intrepid knows the issues with how rare copper is, how rare weeping willow is. So, but I will go to the next point now. Crafters should make the best shit. Number 4, granite and basalt. Feeling useless. It feels useless because it's just out everywhere. And because no one is gathering those nodes don't have a chance to spawn a material or a resource that you would want, like a copper, like a tin, like a zinc. And so what I was sort of thinking to myself is, one, you need to make granite and basalt something worth a miner's time. That's for sure. But if you can't do that, and I'm sure Intrepid can do that, but another thing you can do is make like a timer on those particular resources. Like after 10 hours, if a basalt or granite node hasn't been harvested, it just changes, or it just removes itself from that node and another resource can spawn that's different, right? So that way we're not just seeing a bunch of basalt, a bunch of granite everywhere that no one even cares to harvest, which I think is it's a little messed up, as far as someone who really wants to be a gatherer and everything like that. I know it's definitely great XP, but at the same time, people are hunting those rarer materials. My next point is there's some professions that need to level slower. Now, I am personally not a lumber miller or a carpentry, but I have heard, and there was people even in my own guild that were literally leveling to grandmaster in just a day or two. Because again, this is a numbers game, where you're funneling people these materials. And I think it's kind of wild that you can go from 1 to 50, processing or crafting, because again, I think the other reason why this is happening too, because we're in the Riverlands and there's a ton of trees that people can process and everything like that. I don't know how Intrepid you are going to be able to balance that. Again, I think just with how other processing could be, I think this one is going to be a little bit dicey, right? Because if we don't start in the Riverlands or somewhere where lumber is more plentiful, you know, now it's going to be a lot harder down the road for this to be a thing. So I guess mostly what I'm trying to sell you guys is be mindful of those professions. Be like, I'm sure the data is back there to see like how fast people are leveling certain professions and how quick they're doing it. So I'm sure that'll be definitely allocated down the road. The next thing that I kind of want to talk about is risk versus reward in the lawless zones. I was hearing many people kind of hoping to have rare resources out in the lawless zones, whether that's weeping willow, whether that's copper, whether that's tin, whether that's zinc, whether that's bluebells, the big bluebells, or, you know, whatever, even some raptors, you know, for hunters or whatever, right? You need to add these things so that way people can actually go and create that kind of natural PVX environment in those areas, whether it's in the tropics or in the desert. I think a lot of people are really hungry for that kind of stuff. They want a reason to go out there other than just caravan runs. And I think putting some rarer resources in those zones for now would actually be a cool remedy for a lot of it. The next thing I want to go over is the processing fees. Holy shit, dude. Like, I'm a farmer and I just draining through my gold. Like it's like seven silver to process 50 things. Like, it's crazy. And after time, like, I'm just like burning through my processing fees. It's just, you know, again, because I am mostly getting all of my own personal gold and using it to fund my stuff. Maybe this isn't too big of an issue, but then I've also heard other processing professions not really require as insane processing fees. So I don't know if Intrepid, you just need to take a look at that. But I mean, I think it's a little outrageous personally. Like, I'm literally having to borrow gold all the time from my guildies, and it's just something like, I don't know why that's the case, right? The other thing too is fuel. Fuel is a weird thing. Why do you need fuel for animal husbandry? Why are we burning animals? It makes no sense. Like, I get for some processing, you need to have like lumber to burn. I think this is kind of the case. Like, I think just having the proper fuel for the proper processing profession would make better sense. Like, instead of, you know, if you want to create fuel for animal husbandry, have it require a specific fuel, like corn or something to feed the animals with, right? Instead of it just being, oh, here's a daffodil or here's a western larch and something like that. Like, I think you just need to take a look at fuel for each processing profession, and does that make sense? Does it make sense to have timber or to have wood for animal husbandry? Probably not. The other thing I want to talk about is gathering tools. So there's a couple of things about gathering tools that I want to talk about. One, please get rid of, whenever you make a new tool, that it destroys your old one. I think that's the first thing I want to talk about. Please don't do that, Intrepid. There are some tools that you create that have different stats. There's some sickles that have one stat line that I would want, and then there's another stat line that I would like to have. I would like the option of having 2 or even 3 different sickles if I want to do that. But I think, you know, still make them, you know, bind to you, right? I'm not asking for you to be able to trade them. I actually really enjoy that you have to make your own tool. Like, I like that. So yes, please get rid of destroying your old one. Like, I want to have multiple tools, you know, just for whatever I want to do with. The other thing is too, is that I think some tools, like, why does a scythe require 10 timber and 10 copper? That's kind of crazy to me. Like, it's a sickle. It's a small little sheath, you know, like, that seems to me like a lot of materials for something of that nature. I think, and there's a lot of different things like this. And I think you guys are just trying to find ways to, you know, material dump, right? I get that. I totally get that. But do it in the things that make sense. I think it's quite a lot an ask. Like, if I were to make a tool, I think having 1 basalt mold is fine. But I think even 3 to 5 copper and 3 to 5 timber is way better than what 10 and 10. I think that's way too much. That is way too much. So yes, I just wanted to say that. The other thing, and I think this will probably come with the expansion of the profession system, but right now the lack of customizing stats on crafted gear just feels bad. And I know if we go back to the old showcase presentation of making the blood sword, we are going to have those additive reagents and materials that we can do to manipulate stats on weapons, but currently we don't have that. And there is a lot of spell gear that's just not available in the game right now. So a lot of these spellcasters are just kind of SOL, which does not feel good. I think being able to like customize different stat lines would just go a long way for a lot of people. Even dex gear. I mean, it's hard to find dex gear for people who want to have like that critical strike rating, or for rangers, or even for rogues or whatever. Like the majority of gear that we're finding is all strength, you know, constitution, tank and fighter stuff. And so I think we, you know, if once you start expanding, add more recipes for spellcasters, add more flexibility within these recipes to add different lines that are more befitting for the individual, especially when there's PvP or even PvE that they want to focus on. I think that'd be really, really good. And the final thing is actually up to you. What is your issues with the profession system? Whether it's gathering, whether it's processing, whether it's crafting. Like, we've all been playing this game for quite a while right now. I know some of you guys are still from phase 1, some of you guys are brand new in phase 2. What issues are you guys encountering with gathering, with processing, with crafting? I would love to know. Please tell me down in the comments below. If you really like this video, give it a thumbs up. Please subscribe to my channel. I'm going to be making a lot more feedback videos for the devs so they can see kind of how I feel about the game. But thank you so much for watching. Like this video, subscribe for more content, and I will see you guys on the next one. Take care, guys.